back to Women Making Moves, where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons, founder of Unlock the Magic, Coaching, Marketing, and Healing. I'm joined today with Sherry Finkel Murphy. Sherry is the founder and CEO of Multigenerationally, which provides insights and education for women who are actively designing their second 50 years. Sherry highlights the reality of the triple-decker club sandwich generation, where women balance caring for aging parents, supporting adult children, and planning for their own financial futures. She's passionate about helping professional women redefine the phase after work. As a certified financial planner, chartered financial consultant, and retirement income certified professional, Sherry draws on her extensive expertise and personal experience to update the old retirement narratives, emphasizing creative multi-generational solutions, financial resilience, and the potential for a reinvention in one's 50s, 60s, and beyond. Her philosophy is grounded in the belief that women can embrace this new phase of life as a time for transformation, purposeful planning, and achieving amazing on the other side of invisible. With relatable storytelling and actionable advice, Sherry empowers women to take control of their finances, health, and futures with optimism and confidence. Sherry, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The thought that a woman goes invisible after a certain age is something that I clearly don't love, enjoy, vibe with. And I realize that there's just layers and layers and layers and actual lifetimes of lineage before us. How do you even approach that long-lived programming to even say, did you know that you matter after a certain age?
What's amusing about my perspective is that somewhere along the line, I was able to leave righteous indignation behind and move to, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway, heck with you. And I have a wonderful role model in that I have a 97-year-old mother who everyone says is amazing because she is. And it occurred to me as I entered my 60s that I stopped being invisible and became amazing. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's something else on the other side. Yeah, I get that the marketeers have forgotten you. I get that they don't want to promote you at work, that corporate employers stink, for lack of a better word. They are manifestly disloyal to their intellectual property and to the cohort that is most loyal to them. But if you stay on the field of play, whatever that means to you, if you don't leave the field of play prematurely and don't give up on yourself, then you become amazing and you get to stay that way for the rest of your days. And when I say don't give up on yourself, I'm not even talking about choosing to have a step away career, choosing to recreate yourself. It may be just investing in your health, investing in the tech skills you need to communicate with your grandchildren, via whatever mechanism. It may be in investing in ideas and community and philanthropy. So whatever that means, it keeps you on the field of play. And I think that's a prevailing message. So I'm glad you started there, because I think that's a prevailing message that we get to be amazing just because the laws of attrition favor us.
We get to be. That's the vibe. That's the trust in yourself. And I think what I have seen firsthand in my corporate life and in my own mother, who fortunately, I mean, the moment she retired, she had a complete psychological breakdown and is still in that. And 11:11. Thank you, guys. Like right here and now, I want to just get rid of the notion that anyone ever becomes invisible. Like being a human being, our birthright is to exist here on this earth. So let's stay anchored in that piece first. And then second, I talk to a lot of women around perimenopause and menopause, just how much we don't know yet about the female form, the body, the physiology of a woman's body, because they weren't taken into research until 1993. So there's so much we still don't know. And I feel that, especially I was coming from, in my corporate world, a very stoic, conservative, like, don't you dare say that you're having a hot flash or like show any form of weakness, quote unquote weakness. Don't be too human. And that's exactly when the phase of life, when women need the most support around them, saying like,
Absolutely.
it's okay to not feel good today. Let's take a minute. Let's take a break. Let's go get some water, like whatever. Instead, it's just kind of glazed over. And I feel there's this intersection that I find really fascinating with what you're saying and the work that you do, because around the perimenopause, menopause, we're saying like 40s, 50s, 60s, it's a whole new ballgame when you like layer in finances into that. Because
It is.
suddenly you feel, I don't know what you call it, if there's a term for it, women who reach a certain point and they're on average, and correct me if I'm wrong, on average, the partner or the spouse is typically not the woman in charge of finances. And so if something happens later in life where there's a separation, divorce, or a death, it's like all of this coming to a head as an intersection where women want to feel their most amazing selves.
So I peg that at 50. My cohort pegs it at 50. The women of a certain agency is what I call the cohort, and sort of Boom X, that Gen X, down to older millennial and up to the latest of the boomers. So it's a pretty big cohort. And what we share in common is that the what you should do domain expertise does not reflect our lived experience. I think that's the big thing. And to your point about healthcare not reflecting women in its research, this is precisely the same scenario where the domain on which financial planning best practice was built around the data for white men in the 20th century.
Exactly, right.
And that meant a high earner, low earner, or a single earner household. It meant a whole bunch of things that are 20th century truths and are not true today, and certainly not true for the cohort. So relearning those, having better stories, maybe tweaking some things a little bit to say, did you know that if you do this, you get to do that? But more than anything else, I always start, because it always starts with a box of tissues, and I think this happens with your clients as well, and that's stop making yourself wrong. We already have mothers for that, for goodness sakes. Just get over it. Get over it. You're going to move on. There is far more right that you have done in your life with your finances, your longevity planning, your family planning. There's far more right than you know, and I want to be the one to tell you what you've been doing right.
That's gorgeous, because oftentimes two things that came in for me is one, I always feel the need to say this. When any of us humans talk about how the systems were designed and who for, that is not an attack on men.
It's just a statement of fact.
Literally just a fact. It's not about making anyone wrong, persecuting. I'm not trying to go after everybody. I'm literally approaching it like you said, which is, did you know? Did you know this? And the assumption that all women could vote in 1920, not true. Black women could not vote until 1965. So it's just bringing awareness and education into a space where there's so much catch up, it feels like, and the permission. Look at all that you've done right in your life. Look how amazing. And your point, you get to continue feeling the amazingness that may have been snuffed out for probably maybe the bulk of your lifetime, because no one did give you that permission to be like, return to a thought you weren't taught. And that predates like any mainstream education. So it's like getting back into the 4-year-old, 5-year-old when you were playing in the dirt. What did you feel? What was amazing about that moment and bringing it back in at 50?
It's an authentic moment. And I think I want to agree with you wholeheartedly about getting over the permission structure and getting over the permission structure in such a way that you're not making adversaries of the people who created the system, whether that's the patriarchy or whatever you choose to call them. It isn't about creating adversaries, it's do it anyway. There came a point, and there comes a point, but there came a point in my career where I stopped banging my head against the glass ceiling, took my lumps and said, this is silly. I feel very strongly about having a forget you fund and using your forget you fund. You know how to spell that, F***K. And it enables you to walk. And I think we have achieved a place where women no longer concern themselves with empowerment by the power structure. They simply flex. And I sort of object to the word empowerment, even though I still
Same.
occasionally use it. It's one of those verbs that takes an obnoxious object thing and it's what is it called? Intransitive? I don't know. The point is this, you have to be empowered by. Well, women are already powerful. They just need to flex. And confidence and conviction is the order of the day. If I can give the cohort something, it is the strength of their convictions that, like Dorothy, they've been able to go home all along. They just needed to click their heels.
That's the permission. I mean, sometimes it takes other incredible women to just provide the space to get over the permission, to get over the need to even have the permission. It's like, hey, get bigger, get louder, turn the volume up, to the point where it comes innately from them at some point. They don't need anyone else to like fan it.
The people in my world laugh at me because I will read anything and everything, like just gum wrappers, the proverbial gum wrapper. I am reading it. And I think that we need to remember that good journalism or bad journalism, good history or bad history, these all exist to sort of make a market. There is a wonderful book that I thought was kind of transformative. Katrina Marçal, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right. She's a Swedish journalist. And she wrote a book called Who Cooked Adam Smith's Dinner, which is about the flaws in modern economic theory. And so Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, which is the basis. So this is from the Revolution, the same period as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, wrote the tome that is the basis for modern economic theory, and it completely omits unpaid labor. And the answer, of course, to who cooked Adam Smith's dinner when he spent a long day thinking great thoughts and writing great tomes is his mother. And she, or the notion of her cohort, appears nowhere in the book, and nowhere does it acknowledge in economic theory the role of unpaid labor in permitting men to go off and do what they needed to do. Now, having said that, will you as a woman moan about this, get really, really smart and read all this stuff and get really, really outraged? Will you moan about this? Will you whine about this? Will you complain about this? Or will you simply achieve what you were meant to achieve anyway? Put the book down. It was really well written. It's really interesting conceptually. It is true. It is pithy. And it is for the policymakers and the allies to fix. My job as a woman, your job as a woman, is to go achieve your destiny, whatever that looks like to you. And I'm sorry that there are these, what feels like headwinds, but you got this. Just ignore it. Just ignore it.
I stand in my light so that others can stand in theirs.
Yes.
Whatever that looks like. And the notion that our okayness is based on anything outside of us is both one of the most difficult things, challenging things. And once you get through to the fact that I'm okay regardless, oh, and wait, I'm actually amazing regardless of anything happening outside me. That's tapping back into, and again, as an energy coach, like I know for me, sacral space, your womb space, whether you have the organs or not, still that energy is still there. That's actually our magic portal, like as women. So the power is always there, has always been there to literally create life. And it's just realizing it. And I love what you said. You get to be amazing. You get to be, there's so many tropes out there, of course, like
Sure.
Behind every great man is a great woman. I'm creating an existence where we all get to stand with and next to, and no one's behind or in front of. Yeah, that's pretty amazing, like that notion that you brought about the book.
It is an amazing notion. She's a wonderful writer and a wonderful speaker. And conceptually, yes, we know that throughout history, we have been hidden, to use yet another trope. But that shouldn't keep us from doing what we are called to do. And I have found, so you are speaking to a pragmatist, which is a little bit the other side of your brain. But as a pragmatist, I have found that knowing that we are nurturers, knowing that we are responsible for the community, we are responsible for the community hierarchically, the parents, the children, the grandparents, the grandchildren. And this is the first time in history that 4 and 5 generations are living contemporaneously. And for the press to ignore what that means economically is a big mistake. So that's why I center myself in this triple-decker club sandwich generation, because nobody does this alone. And we feel that we are undermined, sabotaged, call it what you will, by our circumstances. We can't do what we need to do. We can't make the money we need to make. Nonsense. The thing to do is to build a team. Maybe the best metaphor for it, although I don't put much stock in just weight loss for weight loss's sake, but let's say you go to the doctor and the doctor says you need to lose 20 pounds because your health matters, and 20 pounds is going to restore you to health. And it's dangerous for you to have this 20 pounds because it's unhealthy. Maybe it affects a number. I'm trying to create a working metaphor here. And I put myself on a diet and I am sabotaged by the household. Whether I'm sabotaged by the college-age kids and the amount of junk they bring into the house, or I'm sabotaged by the spouse who will not eat healthy, I feel that I am sabotaged. And my message to my cohort from a coaching standpoint in financial and longevity planning is to build that team beforehand. Kids, husband, partner, whomever it is, I need to lose 20 pounds because the doctor says my health is at risk. I am asking for your help. This is how I think you can help me. When you have a snack, have it outside the house. And I'm doing this in real time. I'm doing this extemporaneously. These are agreements that we make with the people we love. So have your snacks outside the house. Honey, if you want to have burgers and fries, please have it out on guy night with the guys, because in the house, until I do this thing, I need to cook differently. And on you go. One of the things that I know for myself and I know for my clients is the best way to accomplish anything is to incorporate others who are complicit and get to enjoy the goal. In other words, the accomplishment is never one person's alone. There is the team. And women love team building. Women are good at team building. We are good at pulling in kindred spirits. And we need to do more of that from the outset in order to get where we need to go.
You know, I saw this in the workplace, and I see it happening more and more. To your point, we have Gen Z, Millennial, X, Boomer, all in the workplace together. And it's so quick to get mad at one of the other generations because they're used to something that you're not, or feel comfortable with something that you're not, etc. And Gen Z has a completely different mindset and like approach than Boomer, X, Millennial even. And I become really fascinated with this concept of, wouldn't it be cool if we could bring all four together, like get really mad, say all the things, and then move through to a place where, oh, we actually kind of want a similar thing, but we approach it differently. And I feel like making space for everyone to achieve the how as it relates to their unique brilliance, but the what, we are kind of all in general do agree on like the what, but like the how doesn't matter.
Sure. So one of the things that I see in the workplace, and this has to do with the difference between Gen Z and the older gens, is that Gen Z knows their grandparents into adulthood, and they think their grandparents are cool. And our grandparents were old and a very different, I guess, impoverished, sort of a depression mentality or World War II strife. So didn't have, I guess, a blessed youth. Whereas Gen Z has had a blessed youth and thinks their grandparents are just great. And I think that changes their view of multiple generations in the workplace, and that zeitgeist is changing, especially because we do require the Gen X, Boom X intellectual property. We require their work ethic. We require their know-how. And one of the things that I had told a client to do unceremoniously accessed at 60, wasn't done yet. I said, when you go into your next round of interviews, talk about how you are prepared to raise the next generation of leaders. That is your plus one. It's not in the job description. You are changing the rules to favor you, but it's something that your 40-year-old counterpart cannot offer. And it worked. It worked.
It feels like because of the way that older generations were raised as well, it was this mentality in the workplace, let me show you how hard I can work, and so then you'll care about me. Whereas like Z is like, no, you care about me first, and then I'll show you what I can do.
Yes.
And so you can imagine there's where like a lot of, I hear all of this like chatter about this rub between the two, and it's just simply understanding the humanities and like how we all differ. And it would be so freaking cool if there was like a community of practice set up across every workplace of all four gens and be like, what do you need? What do you feel safe with? And this is a perfect segue into a post you made recently, and I want to talk about it a little bit. You say planning is multi-generational, and if we as planners only ask parents what they want for their children, we are missing all the dimensionality of families, such as parents want things for their parents too. Grandparents want things for their children and grandchildren. Grandchildren want things for their parents and grandparents. Tell me more about this, because it's like, whoa, that's a lot to think about.
It is a lot, and it has to do with our particular point in time, where there is cultural transition, but there's also, as I said, 4 and 5 generations living contemporaneously. We do have a housing problem. It is not what the press makes it. The press wants to talk about high mortgage interest rates. The press wants to talk about private equity buying up houses. No, we never recovered the building inventory after 2008. We never fully got back up to steam building enough housing for our people. So we are short. And the reason young people cannot buy, 3-bedroom colonials or whatever it is that they're trying to buy is because the boomers cannot downsize out of them. They don't have a single floor, primary first floor, laundry first floor place to go. They don't have what they need. Now, what's interesting is it presents an opportunity, but that opportunity may run counter to 20th century nuclear family financial incentive. And that's a mouthful to say after World War II, the US government thought it was a really good idea to keep the economy going after the war by creating in the form of federal housing loans for GIs so that they could build houses in suburbia. And of course, suburbia did not exist. It was cities and farms in this new place called suburbia. And suburbia was built, but somehow grandma and grandpa remained in Brooklyn or the Bronx or wherever they remained, in Chicago. They remained in the city. And I think that it's time to recognize that for a huge portion of the world, largely what we call the global South, we live multi-generationally because we always have. There's some Pew research where 28% of the people who live multi-generationally, and by the way, multi-generational living has quadrupled since 1971, those 28% of those people live that way because that's the way it's always been. Grandma comes with. And when I am in my Ohio home, and there is a beautiful park almost right out the door where we take walks after dinner, we are greeted by 3 generations, largely Indo-Asian families, where the kids are in the stroller and mom and dad are walking them, and grandma is strolling along right there in her sari, possibly in traditional wear. And there are at least 3 generations represented. And that's apparently is the norm for the neighborhood. And it's a wonderful, well-to-do neighborhood. So we had this moment in time at the end of World War II when via government incentives and the new post-war America can do anything zeitgeist was in full force. And that may have been an aberration, and it may not serve us well because the other two cohorts who are part of the multi-generational makeup, they do 40% say they live multi-generationally for financial reasons because it's less expensive. If I'm a kid and I want to save to purchase something, maybe I want to live at home until I get married or live at home until I have a down payment. If I am concerned about my parents as they age, maybe I want to keep them close. And of course, maybe there is a benefit for childcare and elder care that makes it work out economically. And that is the second reason, the childcare, elder care reason. Those are the second most popular reasons. So back to the point at hand, if we just look at this is what it is going to cost me to retire, this is how much I need to save in order to retire, and think about just protecting my children, I am missing the boat. Because perhaps I also need to continue to protect my parents. Perhaps I need to acknowledge that my window of opportunity to take 30 days and, making this up, take a cruise around the world, that window is closing because my children are not launching as early as they used to. I may have that emerging adulthood aspect in my household, then they may still be home. But also, if I wait until I'm 65 to take that big vacation, I may now have mom still independently living in her home, frail at 85 or 87. So that concept is the basis of one of my talk tracks, which is the Year of Not Saving, where I encourage people to do the big sabbatical or the big vacation at 55 or 56. Because that is before the kids need them for grandchild sitting and before the parents are frail. Because nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's going anywhere. And that's just one example of planning multi-generationally and how it would affect you. And the Year of Not Saving, if I just the 30 seconds on it, is based on the math of if I didn't save for retirement in my 55th year and used that money to take a vacation in my 56th year, how much would it matter to my portfolio if I exchanged that for working 1 year longer? And the answer is it makes a lot more sense to defer distribution of my retirement savings 1 more year than it does to worry about saving, which is some fun math.
Fun math. That's a new thing for me. So something I feel and I hear a lot from younger generations is that just like everything else, it just feels like nothing has really been modernized to think about how to take us into the next 100 years in a space where technology, we have like literally catapulted in terms of what used to take us 10 years takes us like a week now. It's like, it's wild, and things are happening so quickly and things are just outdated. It's just like, whoa. And so again, yeah, so many things were created way back when, 100 years ago after the war. And like 401k, for instance, 401ks were created so that people could invest easier. Does that still make sense? There's just so many things, especially around finances, policy, law, the Constitution, even all the amendments like that just need to be updated. And however that may come, we shall see. But there's just allowing for the space to say what works for your lived experience and your reality and what's realistic. And anymore, I'm not sure that the copy paste or from again 100 years ago makes sense for any of us at this point in time.
I think you're right. And I think that this 100-year life snuck up on us.
Yeah.
It's only 2 generations where we discovered that we get another 20 years. In the 19th century, the goal was to end early child mortality. And in the early 20th century, with the advent of vaccines, etc., that largely succeeded. More and more children were making it to 5 years old, which did bode well, world wars notwithstanding, did bode well for them achieving adulthood. And then 80 years ago, when the life expectancy was 65, we began to work on the aging aspect. So having solved for child mortality, now we're solving for aging. And the whole second half of the 20th century was about the miracle of experiencing old age without realizing that we do not have a great idea of what to do with that extra time. And if we do not leverage it well, we will be sorry. We will absolutely be sorry. And I spend a lot of time talking about the 20 years potentially between after work, what I call the after work phase, because I refuse to call it retirement, the after work phase and the advent of true old age, which really only needs to be the last 5 or 10 years of life. And there are a couple of wonderful books, similar names. One is Dr. Joe Coughlin of MIT's Age Lab, has The Longevity Economy, and it is about how the boomers and the tail end boomers are creating this new design, that the world of Sun City and the world of the villages is not how people want to live their later life in this generation. They're far more active. And the second, more recent book is Andrew Scott's The Longevity Imperative. And that is about looking at ourselves and saying, let's invest in our skills, in our health, in our financial plan to make the most of that gift 20 years. Because thanatologically, if I am 50, I have on average 32 years to live. That's a long time. I can do multiple careers in 32 years. If I am healthy and expect to live to 65, I get another 5 years on top of that. So now a 50-year-old can expect 40 years of runway. And if they come to me and treat themselves as deteriorating assets, doesn't that become a fait accompli? Like, isn't that a self-fulfilling prophecy? To say, oh yeah, I'm 50, I'm never going to get my health back, I'm never going to get my finances in order, I'm never going to be able to understand technology. Oh my gosh, that's sad. Let's not do that. Let's not do that at all.
What moves are you excited to be making right now?
I am excited to be launching, or relaunching, I should say, Madrina Molly on Substack. We have been posting and engaging community for a year, and this is the year of visibility. So very exciting to be monetizing on the Substack platform, where we already have an audience, and putting out, I'll call it amalgamation. If it's not thought leadership, it is the story retold for our cohort in ways that are meaningful to them. And I have a book proposal that is in process. Very excited about the 10 lessons in financial and longevity planning that I would want this cohort to know. You're turning 50. These 10 things are what you have the next, 10 to 20 years to do. And if you do them, you'll be much happier because you're going to go a long way. You're going to last a long time.
What would you say to, well, let me ask you this. Do you serve primarily women in your cohort?
I think the laws of attraction bring me the alpha women. I think that those women are in charge of their own money. They are good partners, but they are in charge of their own money or choose to be in charge of their own money. And that includes, I should say, the suddenly single due to death or divorce. There are plenty of suddenly single people as opposed to always single people. But it does not mean they're not good partners, but these are women who accept financial responsibility for themselves, and they want to know how to get out of this alive. Is that easier for men? It is easier for men. However, I will tell you that ageism, especially corporate ageism, affects men too. And there are plenty of men who like hearing the message and passing it on.
What would you say to Z and millennials, or do you?
My method of communication is to send the message through the parents and instruct them to teach it to their kids. Better yet, role model it for your kids. I have found that to be very successful because, as any mother or grandmother knows, they do what they see. They don't listen to a word you say. I do not know if I am cool enough to impart wisdom directly to Gen Z, onward to Gen Alpha, etc. But I know that I stand a better chance because they think that grandmas are cool. So I'm like, yeah, I'm the cool grandma, whatever, I'll take it. But I found great success in creating a multi-generational communication line through the parent, through the sandwich person. The oldest generation, who are the older boomers right now, with a few like my mom, who are part of the greatest generation, they are by and large very quiet and play their cards close to the vest when it comes to finances and details around estate planning, etc. I have also found that by role modeling good behavior in elder care planning for themselves and in being transparent, I can get the children to get a little more information out of their parents. And when I say the children, I mean us, the grown children, the sandwich people. By doing our own elder planning properly, we are role modeling something that will make our parents open up a little more and have these discussions. So when I say to my mother, I am updating the will to do XYZ, or I'm changing this beneficiary, that usually cues if anything happens to me, here's where the paper is. Like, I know, Mom, I know. But that's an example, but that instinct to share, to be part of it, becomes greater. And that's what I'm counting on, to get a little more information before it becomes a crisis, because we don't do a great job of elder planning, which is also part of this challenge that we can overcome with the extra 20 years, is that we say, oh, I'm not old yet, because we don't feel old. And we fail to do the necessary planning.
I'd also ask, in that space of thinking about how to optimize, maximize the next 20 years, also thinking about how to create the next 100 years and passing the torch to make sure there is a world for after Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and to come. I absolutely agree. I love that these individuals are taking back their own unique brilliance for their 20 years, but also, is there a feeling of responsibility also for those after?
I think so. I think that there is I think the word is generativity in the Boom X cohort and the Gen X cohort to create something new. I think that the press likes to pit the generations against, they like to make the boomers out to be selfish. And that's not the case at all. Most of the people I've met, not only do they want to be generous with their time, with their knowledge, with their networks, with their whatever wherewithal, the financial wherewithal, but they actually want to do their giving while they're still alive. So we talk about the great wealth transfer. Not all of it will be estate-based. I think that there are a lot of boomers who are taking care of children and children's children while they are still alive. And that's something to plan for. It is something that I am trying to solve for more women, that we are caught in one of two places. We either never turn off the spigot, which destroys our financial security because we don't stop dripping, and as a result, kids don't stop squeezing, possibly just because they haven't been told to stop squeezing. And on the flip side, as a result, we don't know how much we'll need, so we don't know how much we can offer when we are 75 or 80 or 85. And that's really a calculation. I love what I call bucketing. Nobody likes to budget, so I call everything bucketing. And I love carving out specific buckets of wealth that are for gifting or for travel or for medical expenses, and how they will be used. We are used to, this is a little tangent, apologies, but thanks for indulging me. We are used to, in the press, talking about our wealth as if it's one homogeneous thing and as if your portfolio is all invested the same way and it's all just one big lump. This is my wealth. And that's not true. That's not true. Wealth has purpose. And the money I use to pay my bills is not the money I use to take my next vacation, is not the money I use in my 70s, is not the money I use in my 80s. A good financial planner will help segregate that, at least logically. And I am working with people who want to understand what to ask their financial advisor. It is a sad fact that the financial advisory business is built around financial solutions that we can sell the public. So think how backwards it is that in practice, it's sort of my job to tell you that I can do a better job managing your investments, your insurance, and your money in general than you can. You may be doing everything exactly right, but my sales pitch, if you will, my premise is that I'm going to make you wrong to show you how I can do a better job. And I may not even at that point know much about you and what your values and what your goals are. And one of the reasons that I'm no longer in practice is that I reject that premise. I think that there is a lot of financial and longevity planning that we can teach people without going to a product solution place. Yes, one implements a financial plan with financial instruments, but women love to learn why first. And I, through Madrina Mali, I want to teach them. I want to teach them what to ask for. And then if they're do-it-yourselfers, that's fine too. That's fine too. I'm not implying that you shouldn't have a financial advisor. I have a financial advisor because I believe in having someone who knows all about me and is willing to tell me not to do stupid stuff with my money. And I'm perfectly capable of managing my own investments, but a part of them are with a third party, and that's their role. Their role is not only to mind them, but to have these good conversations with me about my values, be in 10, 20, 30 years, and to keep me from making decisions that will harm me. That, to me, is what a good planner does.
Yeah, and my question was like beyond the finances, meaning it feels like an urgency where like X-Boom they weren't set up themselves to think about the latter years, of course, and then like thinking about themselves and like setting themselves up for success, but also beyond the finances, just, and this is probably a whole nother conversation with a lot of more people, this intergenerational overlap of making sure that just in general life, that all of the generations before us are set up for the next 20 years and beyond. Like it would be so cool from a humanities perspective for us to look back and help the generation after us think about their next 20 years. And like, we just like pay it forward and just keep doing that, but it's a whole new mindset.
It is a whole new mindset, and I would encourage those of us who think that way to simply role model it. One of the things that I am doing this year, back to the moves that I'm making, is I will be doing #loud financial planning, in that I will talk with great candor about what I'm doing with my money so that my stepchildren and grandchildren know what can be done with money. The number of zeros becomes less important than understanding time horizon, understanding tax treatment. I realize these things are imperfect, and you are correct. They are in need of rewrites. We tend, from a policy standpoint, not to correct things until they are broken. I think that the entire Department of Labor ERISA laws should be thrown out and we start from scratch. So I'm with you. The 401k, the IRA, they are not pretty things. But what you're seeing, and this is Gen X, Boom X, this is the first generation that went into the workforce without a pension. And so it was a brave new world of do-it-yourself saving for retirement.
That's what I mean, though, by like role model, yes. And because they were the first ones, they might not even know how to role model for the generations after. So it's an and, of course. Sherry, where can we find you?
You can find me at madrinamali.com. You can find me at Madrina Mali on Substack, and I am on LinkedIn as well. It would be my pleasure to answer questions, and I encourage more subscribers, of course, so that we can grow the Madrina Mali community.
Closing remarks as we wrap up.
You are not young, not done. Stay on the field of play until you are amazing, and you will get there sooner than you know, and you have more runway than you think, so use it.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.